In today's Business Matters, several global brands are among dozens of companies at risk of using forced labor through their Chinese supply chains. And international rights groups say they use critical minerals sourced from the Xinjiang region of China. A new report from Netherlands-based Global Rights Compliance says companies including Avon, Walmart, Nescafe, Coca-Cola, and paint supplier Sherwin-Williams may be linked to titanium sourced from Xinjiang. Rights groups say that's where the Chinese regime runs forced labor operations using predominantly Muslim Uyghurs and other minorities. In 2021, then-President Joe Biden signed a law to block imports from Xinjiang unless businesses can prove the items were made without using forced labor. Inflation rose slightly last month as the cost of groceries ticked higher. This suggests that price increases may return as global tariffs affect the economy. A Labor Department report released today said that consumer prices increased 2.4% in May compared with a year ago. And that is up from a 2.3% yearly increase in April. Meanwhile, grocery prices rose 0.3% from April to May. They have gone up 2.2% in the past year. Fruits and vegetables, breakfast cereals, frozen foods all rose in price. Egg costs fell 2.7%, and it's their second straight drop, though they're still more than 40% expensive than a year ago. Now, you've seen Ryan Reynolds on TV pitching Mint Mobile. Now get ready for a new celebrity-founded wireless service. Actors Sean Hayes, Will Arnett, and Jason Bateman are launching Smartless Mobile. It's named after their podcast, which is also called Smartless. The company's CEO says it was founded when the actors realized most people use data on their smartphones when they're connected to Wi-Fi networks. So for most wireless customers, a few gigabytes per month is plenty, and they don't need pricier unlimited plans. Smartless will operate on the T-Mobile network. New York's iconic real estate landscape is changing, and for renters and landlords at least. A new law is now in place assigning who will pay for steep upfront broker fees. Take a look.
Most prospective renters in New York will no longer have to pay upfront broker fees. That's because a new law, the Fairness in Apartment Rental Expenses Act, went into effect on Wednesday. This came after a judge shot down an attempt to block it. The law mandates that whoever hires a broker must pay the broker fees. This is usually a landlord or property manager. One estimate projects that the average upfront cost for a new lease will drop from about $13,000 to $7,500. That's about a 40% difference. New York City Council member Chi Osei says he created the FAIR Act because of rising housing costs. He and supporters of the bill acknowledge that tenants likely won't be able to escape the costs entirely, but they find value in removing the steep upfront fee for renters. The bill was opposed by many landlords, including the Real Estate Board of New York. Critics warn that rental listings will become scarcer and rents will rise. The bill is still being challenged in court.
While Google's future in the hands of a judge, the tech giant is bracing for the decision. The Alphabet-owned company has offered another round of buyouts to its workforce. A spokesperson said that some teams introduced a voluntary exit program with severance earlier this year, and several more are now offering the program. The Wall Street Journal reports that impacted departments include search, advertising, research, and engineering. The buyout offers came ahead of a judge's decision to address Google's being ruled an illegal search monopoly. The judge's decision is expected to be made before Labor Day. That will clear the way for Google to appeal. It won't be a quantum leap for IBM. Instead, it will be a series of steps towards a large-scale, fault-tolerant quantum computer. Fault tolerance describes a system's ability to deal with and correct errors. The company has laid out a detailed roadmap for developing its quantum Starling computer, which is planned for 2029. In a blog post, IBM explained the timeline for building a series of chips, processors, and adapters that will go into the supercomputer. It will start this year with the Quantum Nighthawk processor and Quantum Loon chip. And if you're heading to Reagan National Airport this Saturday, you should prepare for possible delays. The Army is marking its 250th birthday with a parade and a flyover in Washington, D.C. The celebration happens to fall on President Trump's birthday as well. Both vehicle traffic and flights will be affected during the event. The Federal Aviation Administration said it will place temporary flight restrictions around the D.C. area. The parade kicks off at 6:30 p.m. and wraps up with fireworks at 9:45 p.m. The airport's website said that they're adjusting operations to allow for the military flyovers and the fireworks show. United Airlines told CNN they're offering a travel waiver for passengers flying through Reagan Airport. It's also adding 2 extra departures and 2 arrivals at Dulles International Airport as a backup. Delta Airlines is letting travelers change their flights without paying a fare difference. Southwest Airlines expects some delays on its 20 scheduled flights, but no cancellations. They also have a travel waiver in place for affected passengers. Auto industry giant General Motors says it's planning to invest about $4 billion over the next 2 years at 3 U.S. facilities. The company is looking to boost production here in the United States. NTD's Sean Marshall has more.
General Motors announced on Tuesday plans to invest about $4 billion over the next 2 years in several U.S. plants. The company is looking to increase domestic production of both gas and electric vehicles. GM is moving to boost production of gas-powered vehicles amid slowing demand for EVs. CEO Mary Barra met with President Trump in March to talk about investment plans. She told the president GM needed relief from California emissions and federal fuel economy requirements in order to expand U.S. output. The new investment will give GM the ability to assemble more than 2 million vehicles per year in the U.S. The increased production will be in Michigan, Kansas, and Tennessee. Plants in those states will expand finished vehicle production of several of GM's most popular vehicles. GM's Spring Hill, Tennessee plant will add production of the gas-powered Chevy Blazer beginning in 2027. It will be built alongside the electric Cadillac Lyriq and Vistic SUVs, as well as the gas-powered Cadillac XT5. The gas-powered Chevrolet Equinox and Blazer are both currently produced in Mexico. The Equinox will continue to be built in Mexico once production starts at U.S. facilities in order to supply markets outside of North America. Mexico's economy secretary said in a social media post he talked with GM and said there is no expectation of any plant closures or layoffs at the automaker's Mexican plants. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Walt Disney and Universal filed a copyright lawsuit against Midjourney, calling its popular AI-powered image generator a bottomless pit of plagiarism. The suit claims Midjourney pirated the libraries of the 2 Hollywood studios, making and distributing innumerable copies of iconic characters without permission. Some of the characters include Darth Vader, Elsa from Frozen, and the Minions from Despicable Me. Disney's executive vice president and chief legal officer said in a statement that piracy is piracy, and the fact that it's done by an AI company does not make it any less infringing. NBC Universal's executive vice president and general counsel said the company was suing to protect the hard work of the artists and the significant investments made in its content. The studios claim Midjourney ignored requests to stop infringing and instead released new versions of its service with higher quality infringing images. The next phase of Starbucks' turnaround strategy is to accelerate its new staffing and service model. The Green Apron model includes in-store technology to improve efficiency of order sequence, as well as dedicated baristas for drive-through orders. CEO Brian Niccol explained that early tests of the model showed that it sped up service times and increased sales. The service changes were initially rolled out to 700 stores, with plans to implement at 1/3 of its U.S. stores by the end of the year. Niccol says now it's aiming for the service model to be at all 18,000 North American stores by the end of summer. California's ban on selling new gas-powered vehicles after 2035 is expected to be reversed. In a social media post, Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley said his resolution ending the ban will be signed by President Trump tomorrow. California had the power to create its own emissions and air pollution rules until Trump reversed the decision during his first term. The matter went to court but ended up in limbo until the Biden administration restored the state's authority. Last month, the GOP-led Senate overturned 3 emissions waivers from the Biden era, a move California Governor Gavin Newsom has called illegal. Zara owner Inditex missed expectations for first quarter sales and early summer trading. This comes as tariff fallout complicates the fast fashion retailer's efforts to maintain strong growth. Here's more.
Zara owner Inditex's first quarter sales fell short of expectations on Wednesday. Revenue hit $9.45 billion compared to analyst forecasts of more than $9.5 billion. The Spanish firm also missed expectations on early summer trading. Sales between May and early June rose 6%, while analysts had forecast a 7.3% rise. It was also half the growth made in the same period a year ago. Inditex didn't provide a reason for weaker sales growth, but concerns about resurgent inflation and an economic slowdown have already hurt shopping enthusiasm in the US and other major markets. Major rainfall in Spain may also have led to a lower demand, with this spring being one of its wettest ever. Inditex called its quarterly performance solid, having labelled it very robust at its previous results announcement in March, when annual sales were up 10.5%. The firm's competitors have also experienced a sluggish spring. Rival H&M's sales have struggled, growing by just 1% in March compared to 4% in the same period a year earlier. Inditex shares were down 4% in early trading.
Uber has filed a lawsuit against a Miami law firm and a Miami medical center. It accuses them of orchestrating a medical and insurance scam that involved staged car collisions. In legal documents, Uber says Law Group of South Florida and attorney Andy Lorenz ran a fraud scheme. It says they paid drivers to intentionally collide with other cars and then claim they were using the Uber app while driving. Uber wrote that auto mechanics and healthcare providers falsely said the crashes caused severe injuries and required medical treatments. The lawsuit claims 4 fraudulent lawsuits were filed against Uber as a result. Uber said it has spent several $millions in defense costs and settlements. Reuters reports that individuals at both the law firm and the medical center declined to comment on the allegations. Beer maker Heineken will invest $2.75 billion in different projects in Mexico. The CEO of Heineken Mexico announced the investment today. He said the investment will include the construction of a new factory in the country's southeast. In April, the manufacturer of Corona and other Mexican beer brands announced an over $3.6 billion investment in Mexico, despite concerns over water shortages in the country. The relationship between beer makers and other industries like agriculture has been a long-standing issue in Mexico. Almost 3 years ago, the construction of a Constellation Brands brewery was moved to protect local water resources. All right, on to markets now. S&P 500 closed lower today. Tech stocks like Amazon and Nvidia slipped, dragging down the S&P 500. The Nasdaq also fell, while the Dow ended around flat, unchanged. Analysts cautiously welcomed the trade deal with China. Elsewhere, GitLab and GameStop shares dropped after disappointing earnings reports. S&P 500 remains just below its all-time high as investors bet trade tensions may be easing. And that's it for today's Business Matters.